Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, typing away at your keyboard, when a notification pops up on your screen. It's from your boss, requesting a one-on-one meeting tomorrow afternoon. Your heart skips a beat. What could this be about? Is your performance being questioned? Are there layoffs coming? Or is it just a routine check-in? These thoughts race through your mind as you click Accept on the calendar invite. Little do you know, this meeting is about to unfold in a way you never expected. One-on-one meetings have become a standard practice in modern workplaces. They serve as dedicated time for managers and their team members to connect, discuss progress, address concerns, and set goals. But not all one-on-ones are created equal. Some feel like formal performance reviews, others like casual check-ins, and then there are those rare meetings that fundamentally shift the dynamic between a boss and their employee. Today, I want to share a story about one such meeting, where a straight-talking boss scheduled a one-on-one and, surprisingly, turned off the overhead lights. This seemingly small gesture, flipping a light switch, might sound insignificant at first, but as we'll discover, it represented something much deeper, a deliberate attempt to create a different kind of conversation, one built on authenticity rather than authority. In the next 20 minutes, we'll explore how this meeting unfolded, the impact it had, and the valuable lessons it offers about leadership, communication, and creating genuine human connections in professional settings. Let's begin by setting the scene of this workplace. Imagine a modern open-plan office with rows of desks arranged in clusters. Glass-walled meeting rooms line the perimeter, and natural light streams in through large windows on one side. The space buzzes with activity during normal work hours, the gentle clatter of keyboards, the murmur of conversations, occasional bursts of laughter, and the persistent ping of notifications. It's a typical corporate environment, professional, somewhat impersonal, and designed for productivity rather than comfort. The overhead lighting is that familiar fluorescent type, bright, slightly harsh, and utterly utilitarian. It's the kind of lighting that doesn't let you hide anything. Every expression, every reaction is visible. It creates an atmosphere of transparency, yes, but also one of exposure. Under these lights, people tend to maintain their professional personas, keeping their guards up and emotions in check. Now, let's meet the key players in our story. The boss, let's call her Sarah, has a reputation for being straightforward and direct. She's not unkind, but she doesn't mince words either. When something isn't working, she says so. When someone does well, she acknowledges it without excessive praise. Her team respects her because she's fair, consistent, and genuinely invested in their success, even if her delivery can sometimes feel blunt. Sarah is what many would call a straight shooter, hence the nickname, the straight boss, that her team has affectionately given her behind closed doors. The employee in our story, let's call him Alex, has been with the company for about 2 years. He's competent and dedicated, though sometimes struggles with confidence in his decision-making. His relationship with Sarah has been positive, but primarily professional. They interact during team meetings and project discussions, but rarely venture into personal territory. Alex respects Sarah's leadership style, but has always felt a certain distance, the kind that naturally exists between a manager and their direct report. One Wednesday afternoon, Alex receives an email from Sarah requesting a one-on-one meeting for the following day. The subject line simply reads, "Check-in," which doesn't reveal much. Sarah's calendar invites are typically like this: minimal information, straight to the point. Alex accepts the invitation, but spends the rest of the day wondering what the meeting might entail. Is it about the marketing project he's been leading? Has there been feedback from clients he's unaware of? Or is it something more serious? This uncertainty is familiar to anyone who's ever received a vague meeting request from their boss. When Thursday afternoon arrives, Alex heads to the designated meeting room, one of the smaller conference rooms at the end of the hallway, away from the main work area. It's an interesting choice, he thinks. Sarah usually holds one-on-ones in her office or in the more centrally located meeting spaces. This room is a bit more private, a bit more removed from the daily hustle. As Alex approaches, he notices Sarah is already inside. But something is different. The overhead fluorescent lights, those ever-present fixtures of office life, are switched off. Instead, a small desk lamp in the corner provides soft, ambient lighting. The room feels immediately different, less like an official meeting space and more like a comfortable sitting area. The harsh corporate edge has been softened. Alex hesitates for a moment before entering. unsure what to make of this unusual setup. Sarah looks up, notices him, and gestures for him to come in. "Hey, Alex. Thanks for making time," she says, her tone more casual than usual. "I thought we could have a different kind of conversation today, so I changed things up a bit. Is that okay with you?" There's something disarming about the question. Sarah is acknowledging that this is unconventional and checking if Alex is comfortable with it. It's a small but significant departure from her typical approach. Alex nods and takes a seat across from her, noticing that Sarah has chosen to sit in one of the regular chairs rather than at the head of the table, another subtle shift in the power dynamic. The meeting begins with small talk, how Alex's week is going, a brief mention of a company announcement from earlier that day, a comment about the unusually nice weather. This is another departure from Sarah's usual style. Typically, she gets straight to business, valuing efficiency above social niceties. But today, she seems intent on establishing a different tone. After a few minutes, Sarah shifts the conversation. "I wanted to meet with you today because I've been reflecting on how I can better support my team, and I realized I don't know enough about how you're really doing, not just with your projects, but with your role, your career path, and your experience here." She pauses, then adds, "And I thought turning off these awful fluorescent lights might make it easier to have a real conversation." There it is, the explanation for the dimmed lighting. It wasn't just about physical comfort. It was a symbolic gesture. By turning off the overhead lights, Sarah was signaling a desire to move beyond surface-level interactions, to create a space where authenticity could flourish. The harsh exposure of fluorescence had been replaced by the gentler illumination of indirect lighting, a physical manifestation of the shift she was trying to create in their communication. Let me explain why this matters. In workplace settings, we often operate behind carefully constructed professional personas. We present the version of ourselves we think is expected or appropriate. The physical environment, with its bright lights, structured seating arrangements, and corporate aesthetics, reinforces this behavior. By altering that environment, Sarah was sending a powerful message. Let's drop the pretenses. Let's talk as people, not just as boss and employee. As the conversation unfolds, Alex notices that Sarah's questions are different today. Instead of focusing solely on project updates or performance metrics, she asks about his aspirations. What parts of his job energize him? What drains him? Where does he see himself in 2 years? 5 years? What skills does he want to develop? These aren't the standard questions from a performance review template. They're genuine inquiries about who Alex is and what matters to him. What's most surprising to Alex is that Sarah begins sharing her own experiences too. She tells him about a project early in her career that went spectacularly wrong and what she learned from it. She talks about her own struggles with imposter syndrome, even now as a senior leader. She mentions the mentor who changed her approach to leadership by showing her that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a form of courage. "You know, Alex," she says at one point, "I've noticed you sometimes hesitate to make decisions without getting multiple approvals first." Alex tenses slightly, recognizing this as feedback he's received before. But Sarah continues, "I used to do the exact same thing. I was so afraid of making the wrong call that I'd create unnecessary bottlenecks. Want to know what helped me?" Alex nods, genuinely curious. Sarah shares a framework she developed for evaluating decision risk, categorizing decisions based on their reversibility and impact. Some decisions are like eggs. Once they're broken, you can't unbreak them. But most decisions are more like pancakes. If you don't like how the first one turns out, you can always make another. She explains how this mental model helped her become more decisive and offers to work through some of Alex's current decisions using this framework. This exchange exemplifies what makes this one-on-one different. Sarah isn't just delivering feedback. She's relating to Alex's challenge through her own experience. She's offering practical tools rather than vague directives. And most importantly, she's positioning herself not as an infallible authority, but as someone who has faced similar challenges and found ways through them. As the conversation continues, they discuss a project Alex is leading that has encountered some obstacles. In a typical meeting, Sarah might have focused on solutions and next steps. But in this dimly lit room, she asks different questions. How is this challenge affecting you personally? What's the most frustrating part? What would success look like for you, beyond just the project metrics? These questions invite Alex to bring more of himself into the conversation. He finds himself sharing frustrations he would normally keep to himself. how one team member's communication style makes collaboration difficult, how he worries that delays reflect poorly on his leadership, how he sometimes lies awake thinking about the project. As he speaks, he realizes he's being more honest than he's ever been in a professional setting. Sarah listens attentively, asking clarifying questions, but not rushing to solve everything. When she does offer guidance, it's thoughtful and nuanced. "You know, not every problem needs to be solved immediately," she says. "Sometimes acknowledging the challenge and sitting with it for a while leads to better solutions than rushing to fix it." About halfway through the meeting, Alex realizes something significant has shifted. He no longer feels like he's reporting to his boss. He feels like he's having a meaningful conversation with a more experienced colleague who genuinely wants him to succeed. The hierarchical distance that typically exists between them has temporarily dissolved, replaced by a more human connection. This transformation didn't happen by accident. By choosing a more private location, turning off the overhead lights, sitting in a peer position rather than at the head of the table, and sharing her own experiences, Sarah deliberately created conditions for a different kind of exchange. The physical changes to the environment enabled psychological changes in how they related to each other. As they near the end of their time together, Sarah brings the conversation back to Alex's development. "Based on everything we've discussed, what's one thing I could do differently to better support you?" she asks. It's a powerful question, one that positions Alex as the expert on his own needs and Sarah as someone willing to adapt her approach. Alex considers this carefully. Under the gentle lighting, with the foundation of trust they've built over the past hour, he feels safe enough to be honest. "I think I sometimes interpret your directness as disappointment," he says. "It would help me to have more context around your feedback, to understand if something is a minor issue to tweak or a major concern." Sarah nods thoughtfully. "That's really helpful to know," she says. "I can see how my straightforward style might come across that way. I'll be more mindful of providing that context." She pauses, then adds, "And please call me out if I slip back into old habits. This is something I'm working on too." This exchange highlights another key aspect of the meeting: mutual accountability. Sarah isn't just evaluating Alex. She's opening herself to feedback and committing to her own growth. This reciprocity transforms the one-on-one from a top-down assessment into a collaborative discussion about how they can work better together. As they wrap up, Sarah suggests they have this type of conversation quarterly, in addition to their more regular project-focused check-ins. "I've found this valuable," she says. "Did you?" When Alex confirms that he did, she adds, "Next time, you choose the setting. If turning off the overheads worked for you, great. If you have other ideas for creating a space that feels right for these conversations, I'm open to them." With that, they return to the brightly lit world of the main office. As Alex walks back to his desk, he feels a complex mix of emotions. There's relief, certainly. The meeting wasn't about problems or criticism as he'd feared. But there's something more significant too, a feeling of being truly seen and heard. The conversation had touched on work matters, yes, but it had also acknowledged the human being behind the job title. In the days that follow, Alex notices subtle changes in his interactions with Sarah. There's an ease that wasn't there before, a shared understanding that creates shortcuts in their communication. When Sarah gives direct feedback on a presentation draft, Alex doesn't question whether it reflects poorly on his abilities overall. He takes it as the specific input it is. When Alex needs to make a decision, he feels more confident applying Sarah's pancake versus egg framework and bringing her solutions rather than questions. The effects extend beyond their one-to-one relationship. Alex finds himself adopting elements of Sarah's approach with his own project team. During a particularly stressful week, he suggests they hold their team meeting in the courtyard instead of their usual conference room. The change of scenery leads to more creative discussion and stronger solutions. He's learning that environment shapes interaction in powerful ways. Let's step back and reflect on what made this one-on-one meeting so effective. First, there was the deliberate attention to environment. By turning off the overhead lights, Sarah created a physical space that encouraged openness. This seemingly small change signaled that this wasn't business as usual. It was an invitation to a different kind of conversation. Second, Sarah balanced structure with flexibility. She clearly had topics she wanted to discuss, but she allowed the conversation to flow naturally, following interesting threads rather than sticking rigidly to an agenda. This organic approach led to discoveries neither of them might have made in a more structured format. Third, Sarah shared her own experiences and challenges. By revealing aspects of her own journey, she created permission for Alex to do the same. This reciprocity transformed the dynamic from evaluation to exchange, from judgment to learning. Fourth, Sarah asked questions that went beyond performance to address purpose and meaning. By inquiring about what energized Alex and what he found fulfilling, she acknowledged that engagement and satisfaction are crucial factors in long-term success, both for the individual and the organization. Finally, Sarah made commitments to her own growth based on Alex's feedback. This demonstrated that development isn't just for junior team members. It's an ongoing process for leaders at all levels. Her willingness to be coached by someone she manages showed true leadership humility. These elements combined to create a one-on-one that wasn't just productive but transformative. It changed how Alex and Sarah worked together, how Alex approached his role, and potentially how Sarah might conduct future meetings with other team members. The story of the straight boss who scheduled a one-on-one and turned off the overheads offers valuable lessons for anyone in a leadership position. It reminds us that the context we create for conversations matters as much as the content. It shows that vulnerability from leaders doesn't diminish their authority, it enhances their influence. And it demonstrates that seeing team members as whole people rather than just role fillers leads to stronger working relationships and better outcomes. For those not in formal leadership positions, this story still offers important insights. It illustrates how environment affects communication and how small changes can create conditions for more meaningful exchanges. It shows the value of bringing your authentic self to work conversations, even when it feels risky. And it highlights how sharing your needs and experiences can help others support you more effectively. The workplace continues to evolve, with increasing recognition that emotional intelligence and authentic connection are not soft extras, but essential components of effective organizations. The old model of strictly hierarchical, impersonal management is giving way to more human-centered approaches. The simple act of turning off harsh overhead lighting becomes a metaphor for this shift, moving from exposure and judgment to illumination and understanding. As we conclude this exploration, I'd encourage you to consider your own one-on-one meetings, whether you're the one scheduling them or attending them. How might you create conditions for more authentic exchange? What small environmental changes could signal a different kind of conversation? How might you bring more of your real self into professional interactions? Perhaps you might suggest a walking meeting instead of sitting in a conference room. Maybe you could share a relevant personal experience when discussing a challenge. Or possibly, like Sarah, you might simply turn off the overhead lights and see what kind of conversation unfolds in the gentler illumination. The most meaningful connections, even in professional contexts, happen when we move beyond roles and titles to engage as human beings with shared challenges and aspirations. Sometimes, all it takes to begin that shift is the flip of a light switch and the courage to have a different kind of conversation. Total_char_count, 18,537.